welcome to this painting or a drawing tutorial. This is meant to be fun, and this is actually for all kinds of different skills, even people who have never painted before. I hope you can follow me, paint with me, or draw with me. The materials that you need are either a piece of canvas or you can use paper. And you can use crayons, you can use color pencils, acrylics, pastels, or oils like I did. So let's get started. First, you mark the middle of the paper, and you can use any kind of color to do this. Just choose your preferred color. The second one is at a line that's a little bit in diagonal. Are you following me so far? Look at more or less the proportion of where the line starts and where the line ends, so that you more or less get the same angle for this line, which is going to be important in our composition. The next line that you're going to draw is a vertical line. Notice that it is not in the middle of the page. It's on the top right of the page. And then you leave a space in between and draw a line which is roughly the same length as the first one, but with a space in between. So look at where the lines intersect and try to follow more or less the same kind of image. Are you with me so far? Next step, it's another line. This time it's a little smaller and it's closer to the right. Leave a space which is also smaller than the one before, and just end by the middle of the page. This is the key element to start our composition. I hope you're with me so far. Let's move on to the next step. Now I'm going to show you what I've been doing with my oil. So as you can see from the green lines, what I showed you was the red line that I painted. I painted it much thicker than I showed you with the green line. So you can do the same, you can make it thicker. Also, if you chose a color different than red, don't worry, just use the color of your preference, as long as it is a dark color. So, what we have so far are those 5 lines. The next thing that we're going to be doing is the image on the left. So with the same color that you were using, just wiggle in the shape. It's a very easy way to make notice how, or make people notice that there's a boat in there and the reflection of the boat, but no details. For the other boat, this boat is looking at us, whereas the other one is looking back. So to make the distinction is a very simple triangle, and then the reflection on the water is just placing it where it goes. And now you realize that that vertical line is the mast that belongs to that ship, whereas the other vertical line is the pylon on the pier. Are you with me so far? This is more or less what you should have in your drawing or painting. Let's move on to the next step. What you're going to do now is get a darker color. Don't use the black. It's probably too dramatic. You can use a dark violet or any other dark color of your preference. And you just mark the bottom of the boat with a reflection with a darker color on top of the previous one. And same with the other boat. Just make sure that the darker areas go at the bottom. You also darken the pylon, and you make sure that the ship on the back, which we had not worked on before, you also make marks. It's a very simple geometrical shapes to mark where that back boat is on the top right of your painting. If you don't feel comfortable painting this one, you can just do the other 2 boats, which are easier. The dark area on the pier, Just continue making sure that the diagonal has the same angle, and the pylon. So that pylon also needs to be darkened. Please note that I did not darken the vertical line of the mast of the boat, just the pylon. In addition, I started using very light blue. As you can see, is almost with more white than blue. So if you're using crayons or pastels or colored pencils, choose the lightest blue that you have. There's also a very light pinkish and violet color also that I started using there. If you're using acrylics or oils, just make sure that your blue, the blue that you're choosing, you mix it with a lot of white for starting to fill up the canvas or the paper, depending what surface you're using. In addition, I am adding already a green. It's a very light green, almost like lime green. And also, scratching it or just adding it with the brush that you can also do with pencils or crayons on top of the blue that was before. So it's nothing that's regular. Just put pieces of paint and pieces of color in different areas. For the top of your surface, use the lightest one. It's not the same blue and it's not the same green. It's a touch lighter. I can do this with oils, or you can do that also with acrylics by mixing more white. But if you have pens or pencils or crayons or pastels, just make sure that you're using a lighter one for the back. So don't use your lightest light in the bottom of the page. Use it for the top of the page. That gives the sensation of being farther away from us. Are you with me so far? So far, I think it's been easy and fun, but it doesn't look very nice yet. So I hope that this ugly stage is gonna very quickly become a very nice painting. So let's get going. Next step. So I hope you're with me so far. This is the way it should look. They say that in the process of painting or drawing, there's always an ugly stage. So I know this is not looking like a very appealing piece of work, but bear with me and let's go on. This is the next stage. And it's a very quick stage that actually starts looking much different and starts giving us the impression of the piers and the boats on the water. So what are you going to do next? First, the boat on the left. Place a light gray, could be violet gray, on the back of the boat. You make the shape the way you want it, but it's basically like a semicircle. And what is supposed to be the inside of the boat is a little darker because the sunset was providing the light from the top left of the surface that we're painting. So that's why it's a bit darker. That's it. You don't need to do much more. Don't go into details at this stage. The second boat has a little bit more work, but not too much. It's really simple. So use the light gray or violet, the same color that you're using. And that light color you use for the shaping of the boat. Now it looks more like a boat. I like to leave a little bit of the red that I used to draw. I like to leave it showing a little bit. If you chose another color for the first lines, that's okay. You can leave it showing or you can cover it. Also notice that I use a lighter gray for the mast of the boat, and to suggest the sail of that boat is just like a little Z shape. Very quick, nothing major, nothing too complicated. The same gray or a little lighter you can use for the pier, and also to start establishing a little bit of the back ship or the back boat. if you decided to paint it. So far, this shouldn't really be that complicated. It's easy shapes and it's just using very few colors. You can mix them if you are using acrylics or oils, or you can choose your different colors for pastels, crayons, or color pencils. I want you to see that the back, I'm sorry, at the bottom right, I started adding some pinkish tones that later will become more orange. This is because in the sunset that I was watching, there was a little bit of a sunlight reflection on the water. This is optional. If you want to keep the water just in the blue and green tones, that's fine. You don't need to put the orange there if you feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it's difficult to introduce a new color. But if you want to, go ahead, place it the way I did it at the bottom right. Now, this is interesting because it's what's starting to make the reflection look more like a reflection on water. You see the difference? Basically, I establish a bit more of the reddish, darker lines. It's just wiggling them. And the same gray that I used for the boat, I am using on top of these reflections and by the side. Do not mix it. Just put it on top. And also some strokes of white. And there's a lot more of colors on the water at this stage. Also for the reflection on the pylon, what makes it look more like a water reflection is not making it straight down and also not making it all continuous line. Just break it down with colors. And as you can see, what I am painting on the water is just basically white on top of the blue, or the blue or the green. Side by side, do not mix them. What makes water look more like water is when we don't mix all the colors together. So you can do this with any kind of medium that you're using. And have fun painting this water. I hope that you are with me so far. Let's move on. We have very little to go to finish the painting. Let's go to the next step. All right, so this is more or less the way that your painting should be looking like or drawing. Now we're going to move on to the next stage. And what you do here on the next stage is basically work a lot more on the water and adding a little bit of this turquoise color. It is important also that in between the boats, add more of the light colors. There is no pure white here. This is either a very light green or a very light turquoise color. And that's what's going to make the boats really and the reflections look darker. I know that the photograph that I took actually is a little darker than the one shown on the left, but it's really the same painting. It's just adding the feeling of the water splashes by just moving your hand with the color the same way that the waves move. And adding the light colors right by the side of the boats where they are. And that's going to bring the boats forward. Are you with me so far? This is already looking like a nice painting. You could finish it here. And as you see, the orange tones are showing. You could use the orange tones or not put them at all. You can make this painting your own painting by having changed. Either you can cut it in half and just use the top half, or continue doing the whole painting. This is a good image and I hope you had fun, but we can finish it the way that I finished it and we can do it together. Are you ready? What I did, it was to actually, realizing that it's a sunset, there was a lot of orange light coming in. So on top of the gray, I just put a little creamy color and not really defining the shapes very clearly on the boats where they are getting this creamy color. It's exactly the same color as you can see on the coming from the top left. They're hitting the 3 boats and the pylon and the piers. So I just added that color. Again, this is completely optional. You might finish the painting with a previous version, which would look more like a nocturne, and then you don't need to put the orange at all. I did work a bit more on the reflections on the water and trying to make it look more like a splashes of water. And this is really the final painting. I added some of the orange to the water so that I showed the sunset. And this is basically it. I hope that you enjoyed it. Whatever product you had, whatever drawing you had, you made it your own self. And I hope that you had fun and you found this easy to follow and fun to do either alone or with friends or with your family. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't seen my YouTube channel yet, I have several different videos that you might enjoy. Thank you very much.